Hi everyone. Once again, no news today, so let's get straight into the charts. If you like trading stocks and options and making money, definitely like and subscribe. I make videos like this every single day, so make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. Starting off with the S&P 500 on the hourly chart, you can see we kind of sold off throughout the session, gap down, which was a little bit surprising to me. I know yesterday we said we didn't have any clear direction, but I was mildly bullish, and this did not look good throughout the session. But then we popped up on the last hour of the day. I do want to mention here, though, on the 5-minute chart, if you look at some of these dips, you have a strong down move, and then very quickly we got retracement. Move down again, retraced quite a bit of that move, significant down move, strong green candles here, and then we found a really solid bottom here at 378.75. And then into the end of the session, this really speaks for itself. Tons of strength going into the close, and we finished slightly positive on the day, just above the pre-market lows from the previous day. And jumping back out to the hourly chart here, you can now see we do have a little bit of a structure. So we have a low, slightly higher low here, and then a much higher low. Definitely looks quite strong. And if you look over to the 4-hour chart here on the MACD, you can see this is continuing to gain strength. The RSI is continuing to gain strength. We're above the 50 here now. And you have to assume that this is going to continue. We're at similar prices, RSI gaining strength. This really points to a turnaround, and we have solid bottoming price action here at this 378 level. Moving over to the QQQ, we see similar patterns. We have a low. The low from Thursday was not actually the low on the Qs like it was on the S&Ps. So the low here was at 260 on Wednesday, and then we do have the push up yesterday, and then we have that higher low here today. And then once again, this does look quite strong. You can see the RSI gaining strength. The oversold condition was on that Thursday, even though that wasn't the low. And then you can actually see that divergence happening. So we have lower price action here, slightly higher RSI. And then you look at the price action here, which is actually the same as Tuesday, December 27th. And the RSI comparison here, RSI was at 3660. And then RSI here today was in the 40s, about 45 throughout the session. So higher RSI, similar price action, and it definitely looks like we're going to be moving going into Tuesday of next week. Moving over to the Russell on the hourly chart. This chart is also similar. You can see we have the up day yesterday, down move into the morning, and then strong into the close. And we actually got above the 144 on the hourly chart. Looks very, very strong. Similar on the RSI as well. The low was Thursday. Similar price action here on Wednesday. Got the pop up yesterday, and then a little bit of a down move, but stronger RSI conditions, and then really strong into the close, well above the 50 level. You can see we even tested the 50 level on the RSI midday here. You should expect this to be bullish as well. Also, just looking at this pattern here, it looks very consolidative. Definitely looks like a solid bottom, and you would expect that you're going to bullish price action just based off the down move. Strong consolidation, strong bottoms found, and then a move higher here. Just seems like that's what's going to happen. Moving over to Apple. I do want to mention Apple here because it is showing bullish price action as well. And anytime Apple, the biggest stock in the world, is doing well, that tends to mean that the markets are going to do well. You can see we got those oversold conditions on the hourly chart here on Wednesday. We hit those on the 10 o'clock candle, and then we touched it again here on the 1400 candle. Rallied into the next day, down slightly, and then rallied here today. Actually positive on the day, which is great to see. We got above the after hours pricing from yesterday, got above the 55 EMA. Definitely looks strong. You would expect at least a test of the 144, which is currently sitting at $133 and about 50 cents, maybe a little bit less. So that's about $3 more of bullish price action at a minimum here in Apple. And I would expect that we're going to see that bullish price action across the markets going into the first week of January. Moving over to IYT, the transportation ETF. It's interesting here because IYT actually did not follow the price action here today. Gap down, pretty much went sideways, had a big pin to the downside, so solid support here at about 212 and did rally from there. But we did not turn positive, not even really that close. The close yesterday was at 215.30. We closed today at 213.50, so a little bit lower, and this does continue to look negative. It'll be interesting to watch this. If we do get the bullish price action that I'm talking about on the major indices, watch IYT and see if transportation does move with that rally. If we see higher prices in the major indices and IYT is either lagging or moving mostly sideways, that's probably a good indicator that this is going to be just a short-term retrace, and then we're going to see that more significant down move to follow. Moving over to XLP, consumer staples. Once again, interestingly, consumer staples did not really participate in the rally and ended up being slightly negative. So we gapped down, moved down throughout the session. Once again, last hour was very strong. Got right back up to the lows here from Wednesday. And this low at $74 did hold. So solid support at 74 did hold multiple times here. This definitely looks a little bit weaker than growth and the NASDAQ does right now. Moving over to the NASDAQ divided by the SPX. Interestingly, here on the 4-hour chart, you can see the last 2 days have been slightly more bullish. We'd been sliding all the way down to support, the same support level that we touched here on Friday for November. Came back into that level on Wednesday, the 28th, and then we popped up. For those 2 days, we've been a little bit higher, gapped up into that zone, and then the last 4-hour candle of the week looked very strong. So strong bullish price action, and it's always good to know when the NASDAQ is leading, you should expect that rally to be a little bit stronger and definitely more wholesome. Growth has been being beaten down and usually leads to the downside. And similarly, it usually leads to the upside when we're seeing that retracement. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. See, momentum to the downside has faded. We're almost positive. We're going to get that cross probably the first candle of next week. Momentum is out of oversold conditions and it's going to be moving higher. We'd expect this to at least hit the 50, but probably going to get into that overbought condition, at least on the hourly chart, maybe not all the way here on the 4-hour, so that'll be something to watch for. But either way, we're moving into more bullish, similar to what we saw here when we got really oversold, started to see that fade in momentum, got the cross, and then we saw that really strong rally for the next couple days. That's really what I'm expecting here as well. Moving over to stocks above their 20-day moving average. It's worth noting here that we did get into some pretty oversold conditions. This is a good indicator for short-term oversold conditions and potential rebounds. And we got back into that zone where you would expect at least somewhat of a bounce. You can see this was the move down from the August high, got into the same zone right at 8 or 7.85, somewhere in this zone. Got a little bit further than that here on the August move down before we saw that short-term retrace and then the continuation. But that's where we're at here now. So we got down into this level. We're seeing that short-term retrace. We expect this to accelerate here for the next day or two, maybe 3, kind of like we saw here. And then you would expect this to continue down, getting into these more oversold conditions closer to this 2.3 level. And then you would expect that to be the more long-term bottom. Moving over to Lululemon. For top gainers, you can see we had a strong day here on the 4-hour chart. This is really starting to build a structure. We had a huge move down into support, started to make higher lows here and some higher highs. And then once again, breaking through here on Friday. And this certainly looks like we're going to move higher, probably into this 335 zone at least. And it could certainly potentially fill some of these gaps, although these gaps are quite large. That gap starts at about 370. I don't know necessarily we're going to move that high, but I could certainly see this getting back into the 335 area. Moving over to the put-call ratio, I know we talked about this before, but we saw this big reading here on Wednesday, very, very high level of puts to calls. And that usually means that we've bottomed, at least for the short term. And that's kind of what we've seen here. Wednesday was the low, at least most recently. And then we saw this ratio get all the way down to 0.8, so a little bit more bullish. Did get back into a more normalized range here, but I would expect this to sell off going into Tuesday, and that should confirm the rally. Moving over to the dollar. You can see clearly we broke down here. So we sold off here yesterday, rallied into the after hours and overnight in the morning, got back into this zone and then sold off pretty much throughout the session. Threw a couple of pins to the upside here, but this is a true downtrend, at least a little bit. Might have bottomed here slightly at support. This longer term trend line is quite strong, so you could certainly potentially see a slight bounce, maybe back up to the top end of this channel. It's worth noting that this wedge is tightening and we'll probably see a breakout to the upside, which will push equities down, in my opinion. But if we do see a break of support, and this continues to trend down, that should be good for stocks. So I'll be watching this and waiting to see where we go on the dollar. Definitely seems like we might get slight retrace, continuation down, back to support, which should allow equities to rally at least for a few days. And then if this breaks out to the upside like you would expect, that should push equities back down, creating lower lows in the NASDAQ as well as the SPX. Moving over to J&K on the hourly chart. Not much to say here. J&K is supporting the rally. We got the move higher yesterday, gapped down slightly, rallied pretty much throughout the session and closed right at the highs here. So J&K confirming that we are likely to go higher. We also got above the 50 RSI reading on the hourly chart. Of course, this is still a downtrend, and you would expect that you're just going to see a move back into this maybe 90, 91 zone before we hit the 144 EMA, and then you would expect that to continue to the downside, probably pretty violently. So this is just a short-term retrace in my opinion, and then I would expect that sell-off to come back in and start to create some lower lows. So we have the gap right here, makes sense. We'll come back in, maybe 91.50, 91.60, fill those gaps, and then move back down and make some lower lows. Moving over to TLT, not much to say here either. It looks like this downtrend is continuing. Tried to rally yesterday, but did not move higher with the rest of the markets here today. So does look weaker. You can see momentum to the upside is fading. It did find some support here at 99.50 on Thursday, and then once again here today. So it'd be interesting to see if this holds or not, but it still certainly looks a little bit weak in my opinion. Finishing up with the VIX here today, not a lot. Gapped slightly higher and then kind of fell throughout the session. Double topped here kind of in the middle of the day, and then pretty much finished at the lows. You can see momentum is fading here. Got the push up in the mornings with some bullish momentum and then faded pretty much throughout the day, got into negative territory. Not a whole lot of bearish momentum, but it is slight here. We're also below the 50 on the RSI, so that's definitely looking like some slightly lower prices are coming. I know this is not quite the same as a normal chart in terms of averages. Last time we got below all the EMAs here, you can see the move down that we did get. Pretty significant all the way back down to that 20 level, which is probably where this is going to be headed, back into that. Maybe double tapping the lows at 19. I think that might be a little bit too much. If you see a slight fade to 20, back down to 19 maybe, then you would expect this to move significantly higher if we do see the NASDAQ start to break those all-time lows. But of course, all of that remains to be seen. Moving over to my accounts, you can see I did fairly well on the day. It says $320, but I don't think it was quite that much. It was more like $250 or $260, something like that on the day. So not bad. Definitely good to have a green day when the NASDAQ was down just a little bit. Also looking at my positions going into next week, I have 2 covered calls here, 200 shares and 2 covered calls at $266. I sold those for $1.80, and they're already in a slightly losing position, which is fine. Totally comfortable selling these shares that I bought at $267.80, which is effectively the price I would be selling them with the call price plus the credit. I also sold 2 puts here at $266 for $1.50 each. So looking at a potential profit of about $330 on Monday based on these positions if we continue to rally. And if we do continue to rally, I'll be trading some bullish positions as well, at least on the short term, and potentially roll these calls out in time as well. If we do continue to rally and we continue to look strong, I'll maintain these covered call positions going into that rally. It's also worth noting here that the P&L year to date will roll over, and these will be zeros going into the fresh year. So year to date, lost a little bit over $10,000, which isn't terrible considering the year that we've had. Very small loser comparatively on my IRA, only $600 on a $24,000 account, and just less than $10,000 on my $73,000 account. Let me know down in the comment section what you think the market is going to do on Tuesday. Are we going to see a fresh rally into the new year, or are we going to see some fresh lows? Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading next year, and have a great day.